Hi, my name is Dean Sickler and I work with Golden Paintworks. Today we're going to be showing you a classic 3-coat application in stucco Veneziano using the product from Golden Paintworks Venetian Plaster. Now I'm going to be applying all 3 coats with a medium stainless steel trowel, and I'll be using a 3-inch spatula here to help feed my trowel. So like I say, I'm just going to be using a medium-sized trowel here. These are sold by Golden Paintworks. You're not going to find these in a big box store, but at the same place you can buy your Golden Paintworks Venetian Plaster. Now when I first load this, I want to make sure that I only load it in the center of the blade like this, okay? Keep it off the top and the bottom of the blade. That way you can do a nice even patch all the way across the surface like this, okay? Again, load it again, only in the center like that. It takes a bit of practice. Okay, so I have on about 5 square feet here. And before I go further, I want to make sure this is a nice even coat. I don't have very thick patches or thin patches. What you don't want to do is put this stuff on so thin like this that you can see through it, because you want to have a good bed of plaster, so when you start burnishing it, you are actually burnishing the plaster and not burnishing the paint underneath. This is how you get the highest gloss. So after I even it out like that, I want to make sure that I don't leave any straight lines. So I come through here and I break that up, because you don't want to be able to recognize anything that you see in the plaster later on. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this up. Okay, so I've had the first coat on, and while it's still wet, let me show you that the surface is fairly rough still. You see, I didn't make it completely smooth. That's okay. Once the plaster sets, I'll show you how we can go back into it again and knock it down to make it perfectly smooth and eliminate the need for sanding. Okay, now the plaster is about 50% dry. You see these matte areas all over it. There's only a few shiny spots left. It's been about 15 minutes. It's 80 degrees inside of here, so it's drying a little bit fast. It may take up to 45 minutes. But as soon as it goes about half matte, it's about the right time. Now take a very clean blade. Make sure your blade is very clean, and we're going to start smoothing this down, pushing it down with a lot of pressure to the back of the trowel. This will knock down all those ridge lines and high points, so you don't have to do any sanding. Okay, that's enough. Now it's nice and smooth. Okay, now the first coat is 100% dry. It's not completely smooth, but there's no obvious tool marks left in it. No strike marks, no ridge lines. Any movement that's left in here is somewhat organic, which will go along with the final completed look. Now I'm going to be using the next 2 coats are going to be very thin. I want to apply them just about as thin as possible. I'm going to be using the same size trowel now, the medium-sized trowel, for the sake of simplicity. Okay. You do not want to work with much more than that amount of plaster. It's really just a small amount. Make sure you leave space at the top and the bottom of the blade, and start to put it on. Okay, I like to actually start my stroke in the wet here and then pull it into the dry. The reason for that is because when you first land the blade, you have a tendency to always want to leave a straight line. And if you put it in the dry plaster, that line wants to stay in there. But if you put it on the wet plaster like this, you can actually take the line out, because it doesn't dry quite so quickly. It does take a bit of practice. See, generally I learned that it takes about 100 square feet of a wall That's an 8x10 wall to really start to learn how to work with any kind of a tool. Okay, after I have this is about 16 square feet here. After I've gone this far, before I go any farther, I want to make sure my blade is nice and clean. Generally, you want to take a damp rag and maybe just make sure those edges are very, very clean like this. Okay. And then just go over it. This will help knock down any maybe ridge lines or strike marks you might have put into it. It also goes a long ways towards giving it an initial polish also. Okay, that's it. Spot up here. That's good. Now let this dry completely and I'll come back and put on a third and final coat. Okay, now the second coat is completely dry and we're ready to put on the third and final coat. Now's the time you want to look at the surface and address any problems that you might see come up. Anything like cut marks here, your grandma's face, right? Anything that you don't want to see in the final finish. You want to take some 300 grit sandpaper, 320 or 400 grit sandpaper, and just give it a light sand on some of the dark spots that you don't want to see. Okay, and take a clean cloth, wipe it down. Now I'm going to be using my medium trowel again. This is going to leave a larger movement. I won't be able to get it quite as tight and as polished. If I want to do that, I would have dropped down to a smaller trowel here. Now I'm going to start in the middle here just to show you the actual stroke you want to do. Normally I'd start up in the top corner and work my way uniformly across the whole surface. So again, just work with a small amount of material. Keep the top and the bottom of the blade here clean like this. So what you do is you apply it, and you take it off tight. Put some on, take it off tight. Put some on, take it off tight. See? The reason you want to be methodical about it, starting at one end and working all the way across, is because almost as soon as you put it on, it starts to dry, and it makes you think, oh, I haven't covered that spot again. So you cover it again. Then it dries again, so that keeps happening. So start up here and work your way across. When I've got about 5 square feet down, and before it dries, I'm going to take my blade nice and clean and give it a light burnish. The plaster is very delicate at this point and takes a polish very easily. This also smooths it down, any bumps I might have left on it. So give it a light polish and then continue on. Okay, so I have the third coat on and it's still drying. You want to clean your trowel off really well before you move on to the next large section. A two-handed method is good. What you want to do is, you see on the trowel here that there's a bevel right along the edge here on both sides. Okay? Put that against the surface with the front raised about as high as your finger like this, and then ride the bevel. Nice and gentle to begin with. Then gradually add pressure as you become used to it. Okay, the plaster's been drying now for a little less than an hour, and it's pretty hard. It has a pretty good polish already, but I'll give it a few more passes with my blade now that it's dry. Riding the bevel. And it has a pretty good shine.